we're figuring out all the kinks and details. Welcome to Inspired Awakening live, episode 4. I did want to do these live, but this is the first one I am doing live. So thank you, Grahm, for inspiring and giving the idea to do this chat live.
Absolutely.
It's exciting. So, you all know me if you're subscribed to the channel, but if you are tuning in and you have no idea who I am, I'll give a little brief description. I'm Kastalia Theo, the Elfian Realm communicator, channeler of the beings of inspiration, and they wanted me to start this series called Inspired Awakening to inspire people to awaken by helping other people communicate their stories of awakening, sharing things about ascension, and all that jazz and gifts and abilities. Grahm is a channeler, among other things, and we met a year ago in the Dells? In the Dells?
Wisconsin Dells.
In Wisconsin Dells, at a holistic fair. We met there, and we've done a kind of interview thing before.
Yeah, we have.
Is on the channel. I can add
Heart-centered channeling.
Yeah, where I did a channeling, it was more about me.
Roles reversed.
Yeah, now it's all about you, Grahm.
I guess.
So I'm very excited. Grahm did a very, very surprising channeling for me because I think he was the first channeler other than me that I experienced in person. So that is, he helped inspire my awakening a little bit, inspired me to do fairs a little bit. So, that's why I brought him here to inspire all of you. So, Grahm, why don't you introduce yourself and talk about yourself a little bit?
Absolutely. So yeah, as Kastalia shared, I do channeling and I do intuitive readings. Primarily, I do spirit guide readings where I connect with people's spirit guides and share the information I get from them. I've had a really good mentor who's helped me with that. And in my experience, we all have a handful of guides, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe, at any one time. And yeah, that's something I do now. I've done readings at different fairs, and it wasn't something that I anticipated or necessarily saw myself doing. I just started tuning in more for myself. And then the kind of natural step after that was then doing readings for other people. So as far as intuitive work, that's kind of a little bit about me.
Interesting. Yeah, the guide readings, like the elves have their whole guide domain where like one guide, but it's interesting how you're able to tap into a whole different host of guides.
There's so many different ways to do readings.
I know.
So many. So I mean,
I know it's because I started with tarot. That's how I tuned into my abilities. I don't know how you tuned into yours. If you want to share that a little bit, when did you start knowing you had psychic abilities?
Yeah. So I kind of first got into spirituality when I was 18, and I was having a lot of mental health struggles throughout middle and high school, and I had like a bipolar disorder diagnosis, so I was experiencing a lot of lows and highs. And the highs kind of had a spiritual, I mean, I didn't really necessarily, I wouldn't call it that at the time, but in hindsight, like they had a spiritual component to them, or kind of a mystical energy and otherworldly feeling to them. And so then I came across some books that had kind of some spiritual and mystical energy to them too, and they were fiction, but I was just like, wow, that really resonates with what I'm experiencing. And so then I looked more into like alternative views on mental health, and that's when I got into kind of more new age, non-dual spirituality. And so that was when I was 18. And it wasn't until like I'm 24 now. It wasn't until I started doing readings 2.5 years ago. And that's when I started working with Ken Lewicki. That's the guy I mentioned as a mentor for me. And he teaches a bunch of classes on connecting with your own spirit guides, connecting with your soul, kind of a lot of classes on like channeling information for yourself. And I had gotten readings from a bunch of different people before then. So, and I loved it. So I was really interested in like seeing, like, could I get information for myself? Because that was something that I didn't really think I was capable of. Or I kind of thought like you had to be more like maybe special, or that it was harder to get information than it really actually is. And so just working with him and practicing doing readings for other people helped me kind of become a little more comfortable and confident in intuitive abilities. But it's something I more developed than necessarily had. That was just kind of there, and like I was hearing and seeing things since like I was born, kind of a thing. That wasn't the case for me, although it is for some people.
So that's the different avenue of it, because I know people use the term like natural born psychic, natural born medium, the ones who sense and see things from the beginning. I know for me, I was seeing things from a young age and scaring my parents. My mom specifically was like, who is she talking to? I would go to one spot in the wall and I would always like look up and talk, and I would see elves running around when I was a kid. God. So I know that there is that, but it's very interesting that you just decided to learn it, and it is a type of skill that can be learned, which I know isn't something that's communicated. Some, like you said, some people think that you have to be special, but anybody can tap into it. So do you like, after you tuned into it, do you like now, is it fully active and going all the time, or is it something you only tune into when you need to?
That's a good question, and I'll answer that too. I want to touch on what you said about like, again, about it being like special. Like I think that's such a prevalent like belief kind of around like doing readings, intuitive work, that like you know, you got to be really special to do it. Like, and some people are like naturally gifted, or like, and it just kind of comes more naturally to them. But it's something anyone can do. Like we can all do it. We can all tune in with our spirit guides or angels or higher self, or kind of whatever avenue you want to take. It's something we're all able to do. But having, for me, I know having like a mentor that was really experienced and could help validate the information I was getting was extremely helpful for me. Otherwise, if I was, I think doing it on my own, I just wouldn't have had, I would just doubt myself too much. But for what you asked about, like, is it online for me all the time? More so no, in the sense that like, because I do readings, right, typically where I connect with people's spirit guides. Like I'm not channeling my guides all the time throughout the day. I've gone through periods where I've tried doing that, and I just feel like I just get more, it's just kind of exhausting. And I find that I do it a lot of times because I'm so afraid to like make a mistake. So I'm like, guides, should I buy carrots or should I buy broccoli? And that's something I think we can get caught up in. It's like really get caught up in like more small decisions and whatnot too. So for me, it's more like when I consciously make a conscious effort to like tune in, then like I'll experience my guides coming forward. Otherwise, if I'm just really kind of present, or sometimes when I meditate too, I will just naturally feel one of my guides come in, if there's something they want to share with me. But it's not something for me where I'm walking around and getting all kinds of information for, all the like random people I'm walking by and whatnot.
Mhm.
Although some people again do experience that.
Right.
That hasn't been my experience.
No, I know. I definitely sort of have to turn it off. I know, and you can talk about that a little bit more, but like with working or school, just interacting with people in general, there's so much random energy that for me, I know that if I have it turned on, I don't know what I could accidentally pick up, but it's very funny that you mentioned tuning to the guides for like the simplest of things, because I do that with the elves sometimes, where
Yeah,
I'm
and
I'm
it's
honestly
fine.
like I'm honestly like I don't know what color to wear. What color would match
Yeah.
the energy for today? Or like it's you do kind of, there's a dependability on them, but I know we have to figure out things on our own, but you do kind of get like handicapped on them a little bit. It does happen. It does happen. It's completely natural and normal. But I do want to ask you, when you're, working, school, wherever, do you ever like has there ever been a moment where you were present in the moment and you had a weird psychic experience, or you had one of those in the moment things that happened in a setting that you didn't expect it to?
Yeah, interesting question. I can't particularly, nothing really particular comes to mind, but I think just like we don't, most of us don't consciously connect with something different. Like you work with the elves a lot, and like I work with spirit guides, but like 90, like 8 or 9% of people like don't do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet people still like move through their lives and whatnot. And I feel like all the time we're getting intuitive information that's just through like our own kind of sense of, okay, like, oh, I want to talk to this person about this, or like just these natural kind of uh desires that kind of arise, or like inklings and intuitions that are just happening all the time. um so I think those are really cool to kind of follow, and it's not necessarily like working through one of my guides, but our spirit guides too can work through our intuition in that way as well, or it might be like our soul. I mean, sometimes or our soul communicating with us, or you know I don't know, just those natural kind of intuitive urges that happen all the time. I think those are cool.
Yeah, like the
And
kind of
that
like
happens for everyone, whether
right,
you're like consciously connected to something else or not.
like the claircognizance kind of
Yeah.
thing, as
Yeah.
opposed to like audiency or voyancy, like you're not hearing or seeing as much as you're just knowing.
Yeah,
Like
that's
a
a good
lot of
point.
people have that, I think.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's that gut voice. I think we all have it in our own way.
Yes.
That's kind of what you're talking about. I don't know.
Yes.
Did intuition ever take you somewhere that you didn't expect it to take you? I know some people do like intuitive driving, they do intuitive this, intuitive that, and just like follow and go with the flow.
Uh yeah. Couple instances. I remember one time I was applying for a job. I wanted to apply at Panera Bread, and there was one closer to me and one further away. And I was like at the page where like I picked which one to apply for. And for whatever reason, I just felt drawn towards the one further away, even though it's like, my logical mind wouldn't pick that one. Anyways, I applied for that one, and it was my favorite job I ever had. And just the people I worked with were awesome. And I remember hearing things about the other store, like how it wasn't as busy, other stuff where it seemed like I'm like, dang, I'm glad. I think I made a good choice. Um, and on like a smaller scale, I even know just like a month or two ago, I was channeling my guides a little more than usual that day, and uh, it was like 9 p.m. and they were like, I was driving around and they were like, go to the gym. I'm like, really? That's kind of random. But anyways, I went and then I ran into like two or three of my friends there and just had a great time. So, I mean, that's just even like not a life shattering, experience, but still like those little things where it's like, why would I do that? But okay, sure, I'll try it. And it's like, oh, that worked out great.
That kind of proves the point that sometimes intuition, spirituality doesn't have to be this big ego, like fake ego dance of like, oh, I need to follow guidance and go do this big thing and do this and do that and make a splash. Like it can just
Yeah,
be as simple as getting a job.
do this thing and get a million followers overnight, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that big of a thing. It can be so
Yeah,
simple. And that we're beings of life to experience life in all of its simplicity. And I think that there is that culture out there that makes you forget the simple things. You can use your gifts for simple things. Like I'll
yeah.
do sometimes at work, I'll do like weird, and I don't even intend to do it. I do my claircognizant readings of like, I just feel like I need to tell a coworker this message and I give it
Right.
to them. And then they end up telling me this whole story that they've never told anyone before. And then it opens them up more. And then, when someone's healed, they can help heal others. And I've seen that shift in my work environment. I don't know, have you had moments with that with coworkers where you've delivered a message or not a message, but you felt guided to tell them something?
Hmm. I don't, I can't think of anything in particular where I felt like, oh, I need to deliver this message to someone. But I feel like I just feel guided or drawn, or I get a lot of joy out of just talking to people in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of someone who I'll talk with just about any and everyone. And it's one of those things that I get so much deep uh, pleasure and satisfaction from doing. Um, but yeah, I don't think there's really been many times for me where I'm like, oh, like I gotta tell this person like everything's gonna be okay, or kind of like something really specific like that.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose if I tuned in more for that, it would probably show up. But I'm curious, kind of what your experience has been like with that.
With that, it's more when I like letting people talk. It's part of like the communicator energy. And when someone's talking to me about something, I feel like guided to always mention spirit or mention, beyond the veil, mention this, mention healing, mention something. And it's like the simplest thing of saying, well, I told one of my coworkers, like, Reiki worked to help me heal some things. Or when my mom was experiencing grief, she turned to energy healing. Or a lot of times it's like
Mm,
grief that I've felt inspired to talk to people about. Just mentioning like, I was experiencing denial about this, I don't know like what you're experiencing denial about, I know I'm grieving something. And
mm,
just having conversations I wouldn't have had um if I was letting the ego take control.
I
Those are
see.
my
Yeah.
experiences with that, having those like just weird, I just wouldn't have them. I wouldn't think to talk to this person about them. Like I was picking up my business cards from Office Depot and I was talking to the guy working there and he told me of his experiences with psychic abilities and he's like, I haven't told anybody about this in 20 years. And
Wow,
just
that's amazing.
because he saw like
Your cards,
energy
I'm guessing.
healing on the cards
Yeah,
and just
right.
started talking about it. It's weird. I don't know if you've had like the reverse of it, of somebody coming up and telling you a message, like just telling you something random and it triggered something else for you, because I know that's a way that spirit guides can deliver messages, is through other people. So I don't know if you've experienced that in your personal life.
Yeah, there's kind of one that sticks out that happened kind of recently. Um, or there's another time too. I'm sure we all get these where just sometimes someone says something and you're just like, whoa, that has deeper meaning for you than maybe they were even aware. Like I was doing this one CNA program. Um, what was it? Certified nursing assistant. And I wasn't really digging it that much. And I did feel like, like I don't really see myself doing this, but I was in the program. And I had mentioned something about that. And one of the other students there was just like, well, what are you doing here then? And like that kind of just hit me in a certain way. And I'm like, you're right, man. What am I doing here? And I ended up quitting. And I'm like, what, that was, yeah. And what was the other one? There was one recently. I was doing readings. So sometimes I do um, mini readings on Facebook Live on my channel. And the last lady that came in, uh, she's a person I know that does readings too, and she gave me a message. And I've never had that happen before while doing readings. And she gave me a message kind of around school and looking into some different classes. And yeah, that was cool.
Wow, interesting. That kind of inspires a question. How do you, because I know that there's like a balancing thing. How do you balance the spiritual life versus the school life versus the working life versus the family life and all the different kind of faces we have to wear while living in the physical form? Do you sometimes like filter? Do you not filter? I know some people don't share sides of themselves with certain people.
Oh,
So kind of, do you always let the spiritual side of you show?
oh, that's a great question. I feel like pretty much, yeah. Pretty much, yes. Like definitely when I first started doing readings, it's kind of similar to my mental health challenges. Like I remember that was something I didn't talk about a ton, especially in like middle and high school. Like I didn't talk about it at all with like any of my peers. And then I realized with that, like I just started sharing about it more and more and being more open about it. And I realized I started feeling better and better, and or like that helped me feel better. So the same thing once I started getting into readings, I I just started like sharing with more and more people, just like, yeah, this is something I do. I do intuitive readings, and it definitely kind of scared me to share that or to like make a Facebook page and invite all my Facebook friends to like my channeling page, like stuff like that. That's like, whoa, I'm putting myself out there a little bit. Um, but it's felt so good to do because it's the real me. Like that's who I am. And um, I mean, it's not like it's the first thing I share with someone. I'm not like obsessing over like, oh, I gotta tell everyone like I do
Mm-hmm.
readings. But it's definitely not like if I feel like it feels like natural to talk about with someone, I don't inhibit that. Um, yeah, I think it's good to live just integrated. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
maybe some kind of uh, separating of things that's appropriate, but in general, like, yeah, I don't hide this side of myself, and it feels good not to.
That's
Because
good. I
there's
know.
really nothing to fear in this day and
Mm-hmm.
age. Like maybe like 1,000 years ago when they would literally kill you for this. All right, there's grounds for like being discerning in who you share with, but like at this time, that's not a relevant fear really, as far as like being killed for it. So I mean, and I really haven't had any. I've only had like one or I haven't really had any negative responses sharing with people either. Like maybe one or two people are kind of like, yeah, that's not really anything I'm interested in. But like I haven't had anyone like come at me or attack me for like sharing that I do readings. So, and even if they did, like, so what?
Mm-hmm. I know that is a fear that people have because I notice it that like almost everyone has some sort of like mystical experience or spiritual experience that they've had. They just feel scared to share it. And so when we're the ones talking about it, then it's like, oh, I can talk about it more. And even the skeptic people, will eventually warm up because we all start before we enter this lifetime. We all kind of started in the same place. So it is interesting. I know that's something I struggled with the integration of figuring out my own being without turning spirituality into an identity, because I know some people do, and it becomes this separate thing where and I like that you don't lead with that because it's not an identifiable characteristic, it's just something that you are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel what you're saying.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did write down a question because you did say that you keep the face on all the time, and I know for me there's a whole part of my family, biological family, I don't talk to at all. They wouldn't
Uh-huh.
support what I'm doing. For you, what was your experience with your family and your awakening journey and doing readings?
Yeah, so like my immediate family, perfectly chill, like my parents and brothers. Like my mom's into this stuff. My dad's more just, you know, in indifferent or like, yeah, he's like, yeah, do your thing. Like he's supportive, but it is, the spiritual stuff isn't something that necessarily interests him a ton. And both my brothers are kind of the same way as my dad too, where they're like, yeah, they're like, do whatever. Uh, and there isn't like my family, we were Christian and then stopped going to church like 10 years ago or so, and now they don't anymore and don't like identify as Christian. So I feel like without having like a religious thing there, that kind of uh you know so in Christianity it seems kind of dominant that any kind of like this kind of work is bad or
Mm-hmm.
evil or something. With my mom's side of the family, though, they are definitely heavily religious and Christian, and so actually with them, I don't share much with. Like I don't. Well, I just it seems like it would just like yeah, I'm friends with like some of my aunts and uncles um on Facebook, and I like share all my intuitive stuff on there, but they've never talked with me about it or anything. And I just like, it isn't something I've talked with them about, like my mom's side of the family. But not necessarily hiding it either. I guess I'm not like forthcoming and like, hey guys, I'm like doing this
Mm-hmm.
expo in a month or two. I am a little scared to do that, and I'm not sure how that would turn out. I don't know.
It's an experience. I know at least I had the benefit of my whole biological father's family. I didn't even talk to them prior to my
Sure.
awakening. Like I was starting slowly and I separated from them. And it is religion is such a big thing that separates people. But the funniest thing
Yeah,
to me is that for me personally, I feel more connected to God. I feel more connected to a higher power with the work that
totally.
I'm doing, which is something that
Totally.
is
Yeah.
expressed like, oh, well, you are separate from God if you're doing that, or you're separate from a higher power if you're doing that,
Yeah.
or angels are bad. I've heard that from religious people, and I just
That's really interesting
that
take.
is an interesting thing. I don't know. Have you had like I, to talk about fairs? I've had some, and we've had interesting interactions at fairs. Have you had like people who come to see what it's about, but are talking to you with like judgment or like almost like they want to cleanse you? Like I don't know how else to
Mm,
describe it, but they have that kind of ire intention that, oh, people like that,
uh,
you handle that if it happens.
Yeah, it cut out for a few seconds there, but
Oh,
I got the
okay.
gist of what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think just on my end.
Mm.
Um, I haven't really experienced that very much. Only kind of one time where I had a gal that was definitely like testing me. Um, and so and the thing about that too is like she was very much putting up kind of like psychic kind of wall, or like she did not want me to get information for her. And so she was very closed off to the reading. And that's something that I've learned through Ken and just my own experience too, that permission piece. So she was not giving me permission to get answers for her. And so the information I was getting for her was shit. It was garbage. But like, because she had like was not open to getting information.
Hmm.
And that's something where, because I've had other, I don't know, just through doing, I've probably done close to 1,000 readings now. And like over that time, it's like, man, like some readings I'm like on fire, like way on point. In other ones, it's just like it's more like vague and kind of like in between. And then some are I've had where it's just like way off. Um, and I feel like that permissions piece, and it's like a spectrum of how much permission you're giving when you're getting a reading. And I feel like oftentimes it's unconscious. Like you might be like wanting a reading, but like there's some part of you that's like, no. Um, so that's something for me to remember to check and see, just like psychically check if they're giving me permission, and then sometimes asking for them to give me permission to help get better answers. Um, but not a ton of people have been like kind of trying to like change me or whatever at fairs, or
Hmm.
I feel like most of the people I've run into are like, you know, they're open to it and are like
Right.
looking for help.
Right. I know we've had like we put a protection of like only people open that we can help will step forth, but there I'll sometimes notice from a distance someone walk by and they're like, what's it? I have pictures of elves all over my table. So obviously
Right.
I get that look where it's like,
Yeah.
and
It's out there
I know, I
in
have
a
to
good
like,
way.
I warn people first. I'm like, a being's gonna step through and they're gonna
Mhm.
talk to you. I'm not gonna be here. That's the difference of like, I feel like some types of channeling are just easier accessible in that way. I know I have like
Right.
I have a whole thing that I have to do to just be able, like a whole ritual to do to just be able to channel, like a whole protection, a whole diet, a whole cleanse. I don't know. How do you prepare to channel? Do you have a ritual? Do you have something that helps you, or any
Um,
protection mantras?
kind of like, I think the two things, and a lot of times I neglect these, which isn't because I'm just like, whatever. Like, I just want to get into it. Like, I don't want to check because it takes time. But one of them is the like permissions piece. If I'm giving a reading for someone, like checking and the level of permission I have with them,
Mhm.
um, is yeah. And like if I have permission to get answers from them, that helps the reading go much better. And the other part is just making sure I'm clear, which is because there's all kinds of just like lost souls out there, and negative entities too that, you know, interact with our world, and that can definitely interfere with channeling and with the information that you receive. And so that's the other part too, where um, checking that, and that's something that it's weird, but I neglect it sometimes because, but it is good to check, like, okay, like, am I clear? And if I'm not clear, clearing myself, you know, of anything going on, energies or like negative entities or whatever that might be kind of close by or whatever. And then also the person I'm working with and getting information from, checking to see if they're clear. Because also if they aren't clear, then the information will be skewed. So that's the interesting thing I've noticed in channeling, is that like the degree of the quality of the information I get, kind of like I said, like it can be a spectrum where it can be really high quality, or it can be pretty good quality, or it can be on the lower end if like if the other person has like some kind of like lost souls around them or whatever, where it's like the information I'm getting is just not very accurate.
That's interesting with that aspect of it, with the lost souls thing and the
Yeah.
energy, because I know sometimes with the elves what they do is if they will tell the person like, you're not very receptive, or you have something blocking your energy, or they'll tell them and they'll kind of try and tap through. And when I channel the healers, they will use healing light to tap through. So have you tapped into healing, any energetic healing, to help you when you do readings?
Mm. I guess the clearing kind of is a certain type of energy healing. I haven't really focused a lot on more energy healing work in general. Like it's something I've done some of, but isn't something I've really done a ton of. I guess I find the channeling and the information aspect the kind of area where I feel more drawn to, but both are really important.
That is true. They're very interconnected. I feel like when you
Yeah,
tap
yeah,
into one, you
totally.
tap into both. Like
Yeah,
really.
that's agreed. Agreed.
Yes. I am hearing like an elf, don't know which one, but wanted me to ask you, how did you find your mentor? How did you find your spiritual mentor in the physical form? How did you find him? How did that happen? Tell that story. They're like,
Oh,
tell that
that's
story.
so
They're
funny because
very
it's
interested. They're like, they want to hear about human mentors and the work that they're doing.
it was such a just like random thing. So I went to a spiritual retreat in 2019. I live in Minnesota. I went to this retreat in California in Mount Shasta and met a lot of cool people there. There's a lot of channeling going on. It was this guy named Lee Carroll who channels Cryon, this like angelic entity. And it was great. It was a week long. One of the best times of my life. I loved it. There's like over 100 people there, really cool people from across the country and some international. And so I connected with some people there. And then I think maybe a year later, uh, one of them, one of the people I connected with did different energy work, and I did a session with her, and that was cool. And then like a month or two later, she just randomly reached out and was like, "Hey, I think you should check out this guy," and that ended up being Ken. And I saw like, whoa, he teaches people how to connect with their spirit guides. Like that's something that I had been interested in exploring and like wanting to try to do, because I had gone through this period of getting lots of different readings and stuff from other people. But I'm like, well, wouldn't it be cool if like I could just get answers for myself, right? Like be my own psychic, right? Um, And yeah, when she gave me his information, I saw he helps people connect with their guides. I jumped on it, and it it's been really great. I've gotten so much out of it, and it's so funny that just someone I ran into in California hooked me up with him. So yeah.
Very interesting. Do you think that that was soul contracted to happen, or that you had a soul connection to him to help you awaken? Because I know some souls come to be the mentors for people to awaken. So do you believe in that? Do you feel like you've had soul contract, soul family, soul kinship meetings happen?
That's a good question, and something I never thought of before. I feel like though that was one of those things where when I did that session with that gal Brooke that knew him, where I feel like she was like, "Oh yeah, this guy needs Ken,"
Mhm.
and so
Yeah.
she hooked me up. Well, I maybe it could be something where even once I met her, it was like, okay, now there's this connection between Grahm and Ken potentially. Like let's make it happen.
Hmm.
But as far as it being like pre-planned before birth, I'm not sure.
Not sure. I don't how when you like because you do a lot more studying with guides, do you think that guides do play a little hand in the meetings we have with people?
Oh
Um,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, guides work because our spirit guides are kind of they specifically work with us. I guess I haven't encountered guides that work with multiple people. I guess it could be a thing. But they guides, my guides will talk with your guides and your guide. Like
Yeah.
they orchestrate things for sure. Yeah.
That's yeah, I definitely see that too because I know that the elves talk about how different like ascension guides will talk to each other and they'll be
Yeah.
like, oh, look where they are at their ascension journey. Let's see, let's help them get here so they can meet, so they can this and this and that. And it's a whole fun game behind the scenes of everything.
Yeah.
A lot of people think there's no purpose to the way that things go, but do you think coincidences are real or it's divine guidance?
I think it's kind of some of both.
Well, both.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't really think that like there's cause and effect for everything. So there isn't like anything random in that sense. But if you're kind of asking like, does every because I know I've gotten caught up sometimes in even being like trying to think of an example, like seeing some leaves like rustle across the street and then being like, oh, I wonder what that means. Is that a
Mm-hmm.
sign for me? Or like seeing like some birds fly and be like, God, what does that mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
trying to find like find meaning of that over just stuff that's kind of regular and everyday. So I feel like when you see something kind of synchronous, like when you experience a synchronicity, I feel like there's a certain feeling to it where you just kind of like know, or like I remember one time I was thinking like what school to go to, and I was thinking about these two different schools, and then it's something that was on my mind a lot. And then I walk outside, and then boom, a bus with one of the school's names just splattered on it, like drives by. So like that's a more like obvious, like okay kind of moment. But like I don't know, like just some birds flying overhead, like birds just fly too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's discernment.
Right. Which is a lesson learned because people get caught up in looking in the meaning of every little thing, and
And
that's
I've
a
been there.
lesson.
I've been
Mhm.
there.
I've been there too.
Yeah. And like, so life, life is just going on. And
It's
not
exactly.
not everything is like a big message.
Speaking
Yeah.
of message, do you? 'Cause
Love
I was
that
waiting. I'm
segue.
like
That's
I'm
so funny.
watching for a segue. Okay, like where, like when can I segue? Do you want to channel any messages for the collective group? I don't see any messages in the chat. But if you just like. I don't see any questions in the chat. So if you just want to feel show us how you channel, show us how you do it, and any messages the collective needs on this super moon. It's a super lunar eclipse moon in Scorpio, and it's a 5/5 portal, so it's perfect time for channeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'll definitely tune in with my guides. I have two different ways of channeling, where kind of like you said, like you do the more trance style channeling. So I do some of that too, but usually when I do readings with people, I just will kind of connect with people's guides and then share it and then connect and share, but I'm not like speaking as their guide. I more play a translator kind of role. And I found that that's just worked better for me for doing one-on-one readings, although both can work. But doing a, I'm gonna just feel into which kind of way feels better here. I'm gonna try the more trance style, so I'll just kind of speak as my guides and just see what they want to share with us in general. I have a feeling it's going to be relevant to myself. I mean,
Probably.
it always is to an extent, but I don't know. All right, so just take a few moments to kind of tune in here. Greetings. I am one of Graham's spirit guides, who he calls Emmanuel. And I am a guide that has worked with Grahm through his entire awakening journey here. I'm the guide that he has worked with the most closely throughout his time as a channeler. And what I want to share today with all of you is something that was touched on earlier, that everyone can channel. Everyone can connect with their own guides and teachers and past loved ones. Again, it is not something that is reserved for a special elite few. This belief does not serve all of you, because it is not true, and it sets up a system where you have to go to someone else to connect with your loved ones or your guides, in a similar way that different religions have played that role as intermediaries, where you would have to go through the church to connect with God, or through a priest to reach God. But the answers truly are within and are available to all of you directly. This is not to say that it isn't helpful to go to other people, because it does take discernment to figure out what is your guide, what is your intuition, what is your soul speaking, and what is just your own thoughts and inner monologue. Or what is other beings that aren't your guides or aren't your soul as well. That takes time to discern. But it is important to know that this is available to each and every one of you. And we encourage you, if it is something you are interested in, learning more how to connect with your guides or your soul, develop your intuition further, to practice, seek out training, or just practice yourself feeling into your intuition, insight, and guidance, and then acting on it. It certainly is a trial and error process where you learn by your successes and the mistakes you make, and can better fine-tune your guidance through that way. So it's okay to make mistakes when listening to your intuition, in the sense of interpreting that something is your intuition when in reality it wasn't. But that helps you then know, okay, I was incorrect that time. This one, Grahm, has had a number of experiences with that, and he acted on something he believed was his intuition that in hindsight he realizes wasn't. That's a very natural part of discerning and figuring out what your intuition is, and it's an ongoing practice of sharpening your intuitive abilities. There is much to discern intuitively. Sometimes an action might be good for you to take. For instance, changing a job, but maybe just now isn't the time. Maybe it's in a couple of weeks from now, or after you have a certain conversation with someone, or after you find a flyer for a different job that stands out, then it's the time to act. So there's many aspects to intuition and a lot to discern there, but it serves you to explore it and to start connecting, start practicing. You're not gonna be perfect right away. No, neither of these channels will claim to be perfect either. It is a skill that you develop. We want to share too, collectively, keep moving forward. There have been troubling times for some of you, times when you felt like giving up, throwing in the towel. We encourage you during these times to reach out in prayer, to know that there is love all around you and help all around you. Ask for help. Feel the help that is here for you. You are not alone.
That's a beautiful message. Do you mind? I do have a question.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yes. For you specifically, what are you a guide of? What is your guide origin?
So I am a spirit guide. I work directly with this individual, Grahm, and I've worked with other individuals before as well. I have lived other lifetimes before with this one, Grahm, and that is where we have a connection that we formed in those lives, which has made me feel called to help him by being one of his spirit guides in this incarnation that he is living. Our past experiences together, we have formed love there, much like in the relationships you have with people in your lives too. And so now we're playing that out, where now I'm helping him from the non-physical realm. It's similar to how your Elvian guides help you. They are also non-physical, and you have also had past life connections with them as well. And now they are here assisting and helping you in your lifetime and bringing through the information that they know and have learned.
Yes.
It's very, very similar.
Yes. So I know that that has seemed to be common, that now people are having spirit guides that they had past lives with. With you at a guide status, did you ascend to a new level and you're at a different ascended level in your journey as a soul?
This is a good question, because not a lot is known about spirit guides and what it is like to be a guide, what is required to be a guide. Um, I will say that there is a training and learning process that occurs to be a guide. I myself am not what you would consider to be an enlightened or incredibly spiritually advanced guide. I still have a good amount to learn, but I am learning through my experience being a guide, just how you learn on Earth, learning what works, what doesn't work, what is helpful, what isn't helpful. I am learning more and more how to best communicate with Grahm and how to get my messages across in the best possible way that he is receptive to. So it is very much an art form, and just as how you would communicate with someone face to face on Earth, you communicate differently with different people just based on where they're at and what their belief systems are. I have found the best way to communicate with Grahm at this moment. I've learned there. But being a spirit guide is something that it takes training to get up to. Most guides, before they become guides, watch other spirit guides in action and play kind of an observatory or student role before fully becoming a guide for someone else. But it is not something that you have to be incredibly advanced or enlightened at, in the sense of being like a Buddha or a Jesus type figure, to be a spirit guide for someone on the individual level.
Interesting how you explain it, because that's the elf group that are guides. They do have the observer period, they call it the visitor period, the learner period. That's how their realm learns to be a guide. And in your first lifetime with your guide, it is their first lifetime being a guide. So are you from the human realm? Correct. You existed as a human.
Yes, I've had multiple human lifetimes and lifetimes on other planets as well. Uh, but I learned a lot in my human lifetimes and have reached a point where I desire to be of service in the non-physical realm by being a guide.
Interesting. I do, if you're
I
comfortable answering this question, what is your soul slash star origins? Where did you come from as a soul?
I will answer that, but I also want to mention that I desire to be a spirit guide. If I desire at a later period to have another human incarnation or an incarnation elsewhere, I am free to do that. At this time, though, I get a lot of joy and pleasure and enjoy being in the non-physical realm at this time. As far as star origin goes, I spent a lot of time in the star system of Sirius, a more technologically advanced civilization. And that's where I gained a ton of spiritual growth uh, through my lifetimes in the Sirius star system. Lifetimes where Grahm was present as well. We learned and bonded together. So thank you for your questions.
Yes, thank you for answering and thank you for sharing. There is a person in the chat who wants to say hi and is wondering if we would be okay having a surprise guest in this live, Sky Chen. So I don't know
That's
if
so
Grahm
funny.
wants to come back, or if you have any guidance on that, to have someone come in and contribute to the channeling conversation going on right now. But or if you have any messages for Sky, while I try and find the information there. Do you have any messages for Sky Chen?
Bring them on in.
Bring him on in. Let's do that. I will send him now the information.
We don't have any particular messages for Sky at this time, as we want to keep the messages broad and applicable to everyone.
Yes.
But
Yes.
bring them on in.
Bring him on in. Well, I sent him if he.
And we will now close this channeling unless there were any other final questions you would like to ask.
Not that I can think of at the moment, and I don't see any else in the chat. So that is all for now. Thank you so much for communicating with us.
And thank you for asking such insightful and thoughtful questions as well. We appreciate your enthusiasm for this work. So thank you.
You. Thank you. Cool. While I wait for Sky to hopefully hop on. I don't know if you heard that. But Sky
Oh
comment.
no, I
You
heard
heard
all of
that.
it. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm interested while we wait for that. What do you experience while they're speaking? Do you see things? Do you hear things? What's your experience while the guide is communicating?
So I've never gotten to the point where it's like I've like embodied them to the point where I'm like not aware of what I'm saying or what's happening. I'm still there.
Mhm.
And sometimes when I do that, the more like speaking as them, not so much this time. Although I do feel it where it's just this expanded kind of feeling, especially around my head. But other times it's just like, whoa, I feel so huge and like peaceful and like zened out. But like my experience with it is like I set the intention to like I know what this guide feels like. As he'd mentioned, I've worked with him a good amount. I'm familiar with like his energy signature and kind of how he communicates and talks. So I just kind of feel him there and kind of like melding with me, and then I just kind of let flow what I feel like is coming from him as far as the words go. Like I just talk, and I don't exactly know where it's going, but it's just kind of like a few words, a sentence at a time, kind of a thing.
That's interesting. Do you hear it as a different language being translated or feel it in that way? Because that's how I feel it. I feel it as a different language translating, like it's translating to English almost. I don't know if you experienced that.
I haven't necessarily experienced it in that way, no.
Mhm. It's interesting. I typically don't see things, but the weirdest thing is and I don't know if everyone else could see it, or it was just me, but I could clearly see like your soul energy behind your body.
In what way?
In a way that it was like I could tell that you had stepped back and I could see like the aura outline of a soul behind that I could tell was yours, and that you were like in the room but not in the body, which
Interesting.
was
That's really cool.
I've never seen anything like that before, and I was just like I took note of it and like I have never seen anything like that before, and it was very interesting to experience that and to see that. Yes, Sky said okay coming in, but I don't see anything pop up. I don't know. But
That's okay.
it is so funny. If he's not able to get on, he's not able to get on. We'll see how that
You
works.
asked some great questions, by the way.
Thank you.
Like those were really good ones. And yeah.
Oh, there. I hit admit, so let's see if he's in. Ah! That's so funny. I I love that. Thank you. Those questions were kind of eating at me when you connect with guides. Hi, Sky.
Hey
Everyone's saying
guys, how's it
hi.
going?
What's up?
Yeah, we'll
Look at
wrap
all of
up.
us youngins.
I'm a youngin' too.
Yep.
Yes. We'll wrap up at like maybe 8. So we'll have like 20 minutes to chat with special guest Sky making an appearance in another episode. He had a whole episode for him and just couldn't keep
Couldn't contain himself.
I couldn't contain myself.
Ah,
No, I saw it because Kastalia told me about it beforehand. And she's like, you should hop on. And I had some other things I was doing today, but as I was kind of relaxing into my home, the feed came up. It popped up on my social media, and I was like, all right, I'll come on in. And I got in right as you were channeling from your main guide, Grahm, and just hearing a lot of that. It's pretty cool about how you're talking about how guides observe other guides and how it's an ongoing process. That is a really cool perspective to bring to the table. And as you were saying that, I was given some context on the relationship I have with my main guide. I guess you could call him my main guide.
yeah, that's fair.
He's a brother of mine, and he was living a long time ago at the same time I was alive too, and we were actually flesh and blood brothers in ancient Greece. But then after that, we did a kind of hop skip thing where if I'm alive, he's like the main guy to relay information, to show signs, to give suggestions, to do hints. And then when I pass away and he embodies himself in the physical form, then I take on that role as well. And it's kind of like we have this like longing to be together, flesh and blood, in the same at the same time, in the same life. But there's some sort of divine necessity, I want to say. That's kind of a strong word, but divine design for that. I was wondering if you have a relationship like that with any of your guides, either of you, or if you know of anybody that you've come across that's had that kind of interesting setup, and what you can kind of like get from it as to why it has that kind of structure to it, or why it's that way.
Okay. Yeah, that's a cool question. I'm just kind of tuning in with my guide right now and seeing what he has to share, because I don't necessarily know a lot.
I know a smidge about that, in the sense that with Soul and Star Origins, in my Star Origin planet energy, we have our guardian, or she's called the Alphian, like ALF, like Alpha leader
Clever.
of the planet, and she always remains. She's like the number one Novian, is the planet of Star Origins for me. My Soul Origins is the sun. So when we're there in the non-physical, she's there as a guardian, and when we're in the physical, she connects with our highest self. And when us souls, she says there are 12 of us, are able to tune in and connect, she's there, but she will never incarnate in the physical, but half at a time. Not every Novian is incarnating at the same time, and we can astral project and connect to each other. But that is the closest experience I have to that, from what I know. I don't know if Grahm is hearing anything.
The feeling I'm getting is that like it's really common, kind of what you shared, Sky, to like go from like you're incarnated and you have your guide helping you, and then your guide incarnates and then you help them, kind of a thing that like it's almost like they're helping you, giving you a pat on the back, and then you kind of return the favor. The feeling I'm getting from my guide is that that's like a very common thing.
It's a really beautiful thing. It's like life after death. Nothing can really separate us, especially if a soul makes such a profound impact on another soul and vice versa, and it's reciprocal.
Yeah, it's just ongoing.
That's so interesting. Do you have anything else you wanted to add to the conversation, Sky? Any message you had related to what we were talking about?
I don't know why. We'll get the context for it, but just to give anybody who's watching who has no idea who I am or anything, I'm natural. I'm a natural.
We should have introduced who you are.
I'm a dude. I channel. I can see, hear, feel, and know. That's the easiest way, just to get the words out of the way, descriptions, all this and all that. Yes, from birth, it's always been this way. And as I've grown older, I can see that it's that way in other lives too, just like it is with Grahm and with Kastalia too. But as you were asking that, I saw a candy, like a wrapped up candy, and it was really well put together. It was from high quality ingredients. It's like, that old sugar pulling technique that they used to do in like the 1920s and 30s, where they would like heat up sugar to a certain temperature and then they would pull it in a certain way and it would make all these elaborate like designs and stuff. That's the feeling I'm getting. I feel like a grandma figure or something is connected to this and like wanting to come through. Might be Graham's grandma.
Could be.
Did she pass? What's the number 2 about? Is it 2 years or like 2?
Yeah, I mean, she passed 3 years ago.
A few?
3.
Okay. Because she was highlighting the number 2. And then I see like a birthday cake. I don't know if they gave her like a nice big celebration or something. Did you guys give her like a nice celebration? Give her like a crap ton of candles and be like, okay, blow it out, make your wish, and then like poke at her for like having 1 or 2 candles or whatever that are lasting and be like, oh, you've got a couple of suitors, grandma, something like that.
It totally could be. I don't particularly remember, but
what's the sugar connection? Keep your heart sweet is the message I'm hearing right now. She appreciates this. This could get a little personal, Grahm. So if you don't want to get into it,
that's fine.
Give me a sign.
Let her eat, man.
Let her eat. I'm getting like a meatloaf recipe too, or like something about corn. Like she put canned corn in something that's not conventional, and that was her like signature for a dish or something.
I mean, she would do her own thing.
Yeah, and, it's like it's not as extreme, but it's almost like here's some lime jello with corn, and it's like it was good, but it was like, Grandma, you're the only person on the face of planet Earth that does that, and we love you. That's like the idea, and she's like laughing and giggling at that. She had a really slow laugh. It's like like that. It's like some people like giggle or something. That's how I'm hearing it right now. But she says that she appreciates your sweetness of heart, even in the face of sour notes. That there's been 3 kind of blows to you in the past year. I want to say 6 months, maybe even less than that, where you're just discouraged and disappointed in people. And the lack of like the lack of reciprocity. And it's like she says, keep your heart sweet, keep that sweet, and indulge in the small little thing. Like you're a Sagittarius, bro. Like you should be enjoying like all the things in life. Like you should be trying stuff out. You should be like, I don't know. My girlfriend is a South Node in Sag, so I feel that pull all the time where it's like, let's go skydiving, let's like go snorkeling, let's do something dangerous, let's like do this and do that and do that and that. And it's like, okay, but like that kind of thing for you with small little bites, maybe it's symbolic too about the candies, like take what you can little by little, like because
drop out of the little seriousness, eh?
It's okay to be, people appreciate your earnestness and your realness, we'll say, because you get to the heart of the matter. And if someone is willing and receptive, you're going to be there and you're going to reciprocate, like hands down. That's not a learned thing. That's an aspect of who you are as a soul. It transcends this life. Like you felt that way as well. I'm seeing a past life of yours come up right now, like really clearly. You were a blonde chick and you had like really soft hair. This is in the 70s, I think. Kind of like I've seen like sunflowers, some sort of connection to sunflowers or something. So if you've ever dreamt of, or whenever you're in literal life, like driving past a sunflower field or something, and you feel a little like nostalgia or just like peace, that's subtle. That's why.
I do like the sunflowers and the sun.
It's
Yeah,
so
that
interesting because
symbolism
I
I've
get the
used.
same thing. I get the nostalgia from sunflowers.
Oh, do you?
Yes. I mean I have sun stuff everywhere, but sunflowers. Yeah. That's so interesting.
Don't you love it how spirit does that, even with us when we might not necessarily get the memo, but we're still tools. For lack of a better word, we're still conduits of soul and spirit. Like we don't always get the memo. That's what I tell my clients, where it's like sometimes I'm like, I don't know how I got that information. It just came through, and it's like landing not just with one specific person that you're working with, but it's landing in exactly the way that it needs to. And that's something I love about group reads too, like galleries and small group sessions where you have like at least, I don't know, like 8 people or more. And you've got like, it's even cooler in a big audience, and where you just like hop, or you kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak, without even realizing that what you're doing.
Yeah, like if a message resonates for multiple people.
It's so cool when that happens, because you feel like a member of the audience yourself, and then it's very humbling and rewarding. I'm sure for you as it is for me, because
I haven't done as much group stuff as you have, my friend.
You're going to get on that. You're going to get on that, but don't give up on your dream of public speaking. I'm not channeling this necessarily because I remember our conversation.
Okay.
Like, don't give up.
I definitely like, I love the speaking part. I really enjoy it.
You're very receptive. People listen to what you have to say, not because of your hustle, like projection of what a lot of people do in our culture this day of age, where they want to like grab attention. You do the exact opposite, which is like similar to how I work too. I think that's why we really like our energy jives pretty well. Like I've always gotten along with you, because we're in touch with the divine feminine. We're in touch with reception, with being present rather than poking at something, which is like the divine masculine always wants.
It's really interesting that you highlight that, because I never thought about how I communicate in that way, but I feel like you're right, of just being a little more like, hey, here's an option, but it's like I'm not. I've definitely gone through periods of like trying to like change people's minds. I've definitely had different conversations with there's a lot of cool people I know in my college town here that are Christian, and like getting debates. But I'm like, it's so exhausting, and I'm like, why am I even trying to change? Like it's actually been really relaxing and peaceful and satisfying to just more accept people where they are, and more just be like, here's an option, but you do your thing.
I'm definitely in that bandwagon too. I think that affects a lot of us because we're so passionate, and especially if we have star seed stuff going on. That for me, I can hear your guide saying this, Kastalia, indigo child. Like, there's stuff that just boils my blood, and when I was younger, especially. But I've been through so much grief, sorrow, loss, and feelings of betrayal. But they're great teachers because in every instance of betrayal, for example, the reason it burns so much is because you once you get to a certain place where you can accept that you're as much part of the equation as the others were or whatever, you'll start to see your role in it, and start to take accountability for that. Why am I bringing that up? There was something else I was going to bring up, and I tabled it, but then I lost it. It was juicy though. It'll come back if it needs to. But yeah, you're your public speaking. Oh, this is what they wanted to add to it. It's not just a message for you, Grahm, but it's a message for a lot of us mediums that are just really sensitive, and we want to do our stuff in these times, but a lot of us are very frustrated working things out because we're processing things in a very three-dimensional physiological way on top of it. I'm sure you're feeling this this moon stuff right now, Kastalia, because
Yes.
you and I both got Taurus Scorpio going on. Holy freaking cannoli, man. I woke up I woke up today with like the most sore throat ever. It just came on out of nowhere. And I haven't really been traveling around a lot or anything or meeting up with anybody, but I feel it's a purge of sorts. Okay, before I get carried away, I got to relay this message for us. So, whatever inspires you, even if it is at some level, I want to change this person's mind. That's a divine inspiration. And we can talk about the delivery and the logistics of working with people in that manner. But at the essence of it, what initiates that feeling from within is divine, and that should not be squashed ever. But you can channel it into, like, for example, speaking your mind freely and openly on a platform or an audience that is receptive to you. And then in a way, you'll kind of like sideswipe the need to have to like make the communication be this way with the party that you want to change. When I'll give you an example, like in my own personal life, I've had I've had such a difficult time with my family for my entire life for lots of different reasons, but needing to be heard, needing to be seen, needing to be like a valued part of the unit of the family. And I always felt like I like I was under someone's thumb, or I was like silenced, or I was discounted like constantly. But with my own parents, so just to give a little bit of a background, like I used to live in Asia. I used to live in Taiwan. I lived there for a couple of years. I got really sick, and I got what ended up being autoimmune disease, Lyme disease, which in the greater sense of it got me back to my actual true self. So that's the blessing and the curse, and the curse and the blessing, if you want to see it that way. But when I came back, not only was I really, really sick, really reluctant to live at home with my folks because they would still push back on everything. But all of the things that I was trying with my health, not even spiritually at that point yet, but everything I was trying with my health, like what we now recognize as legitimate, but like back then, like juicing was a new thing. And like antigen therapy for healing from infections was like totally out there. And DNA science, talking about how your specific DNA will will determine this and this and this and this, and give you this and this and this to look out for in your lifestyle and in your food choices, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways, I dove straight in because the standard medical system did absolutely nothing for me. And it was that frustration, and it was that like trying to break through. Like I was trying to open the wrong door. Right. And I'm a Taurus. I'm pretty stubborn. So I will like try to ram the door down to the greatest extent it possibly
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thanks, man. Yeah. I don't feel 35, but it's kind of surreal. I don't know.
It's very interesting with health. I feel that message, follow your inspiration when it comes to dealing with your health, because I know, and we can like end on this note, I guess. I know that people now have started having that awakening in regards to their health, and don't follow someone else's determination of how you should care for your health. Follow your internal guidance, and that's following your intuition, following your inspired spark. That's such a big thing, and that's something, Sky, you learned like the hard way, right?
And
like
that probably goes for everything too, like
right,
not just health, but in general. Like,
right,
I mean, take other people's perspectives into account, I guess, but at the end of the day, like, you kind of
it's your life.
have your own sense of like what is right and appropriate that it's good to follow.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had to have that shattered. I was going to make another point though, and never got to it because I'm such a I'd like to draw out everything.
Draw out the story.
I'm such a storyteller, man. Like I love it though. I used to be critical about that, but I love the fact that I can just pop a squat. If we gotta have like a portable Coleman grill or something to make a fire, and just like be like, gather around, children. Let's talk about the story.
We need to do a storytelling. We could do another episode of just storytelling, inspired awakening storytelling, where all three of us just channel storytell, and Sky will guide it, and maybe it'll just be Sky telling the story.
Let's all tell the stories. That'll be
Sky
fun.
would do better at it. He's like, you're good at telling stories.
I gotta shut the lights off, put like a flashlight under me and be like, gather round, children. The year was 363 BC in a dark corner of the earth.
Past life stories.
Okay, I've got them. I actually just referenced one to someone yesterday.
We definitely need to do that. We definitely need to do that at some point.
Yeah.
Past life stories.
Yeah.
I know. I just feel inspired to deliver this message, and because this has been an hour and a half, so we'll wrap this episode up. But you will, because I had that moment, like we're all talking, we're all chatting, people are watching, and you will find your inspired soul tribe when you are truly authentically yourself, because we are all different kinds of channelers, right? We found each other in the most bizarre ways, but actually the most normal ways for the community that we're a part of. Part of tuning into your awakening is understanding that you might spend some time alone without anybody who understands you, but you'll inevitably find people who do, and that acceptance is something that is a journey. I know it's something that I've struggled with. I'm sure it's something that these guys have struggled with as well. And I'm definitely, they radiate more divine feminine in the work that they do. I have more of the masculine side as well. So you see the balance where I definitely search for it in a different way, where I'm not just like, go with the flow, accepting. I'm like, I need it now. I need action, logic, structure. Let's go. And it's okay to take a break and breathe and realize it's all going to find you, and it's going to find you when you're not looking for it. It definitely will. So I don't know if either of you have any concluding thoughts, and then I'm sure we'll chat on our own when the live is done.
Most likely, I already saw it. I have to spit it out because I got to like the very, very end. So here's the message for Grahm and me, and for you, and for everybody that's in this position. From my experience. So when I came back, I was really, really sick. I was learning everything about my health. I had even more pushback from my folks. And in my perspective, I was like, they're never going to learn. They're never going to get it, whatever. So I had to release that. And it was years long process. It was decades long process. But if you look at today and you fast forward from that time until now, well, I spent time away from them. Even when I was conflicting, when we're like going up against that kind of energy and we're butting heads and doing that kind of thing, we still leave a ripple across space-time in the hearts and minds of people. And my folks and my sisters, after witnessing what I went through year after year, and I was kind of like the first person in the family to ever talk about that stuff. There was so much ridicule. There was so much witch burning, so to speak. But after years went by, they started exploring the exact same things I did. And then they would talk to me, and I can talk to my mother.
That's awesome.
Like today, and we can talk about that kind of stuff. And she won't ridicule me nearly to the extent that she used to before. I think a proponent of that was absolutely the space that I gave not only her, but myself. Because sometimes we try to force, like what you were saying earlier before I even popped on, you're like, or your guide was saying, he's like, sometimes the action is needed and you know it. And if you're a channeler, like that comes through, but we're human beings, right? We're impatient. We want it now. We want it.
Sometimes it's like a different time later, not now. Like, yes, do it, but not now, which that can be like tricky to discern, because sometimes it's like, oh, okay, yeah, like I should, for example, quit my job. Then it's like, wait, quitting my job doesn't quite feel quite right. Doesn't feel, but like it feels right, but it doesn't. And it might there can be like so many facets to it where it's like, yes, leave your job, but like not right now, maybe maybe in a few weeks or after you have like, there's, I don't know, it's where intuition's so interesting.
It is, because there's like, sometimes I find my place in a space of dichotomy where I simultaneously acknowledge, sit with my higher self in total peace, in total understanding. Everything's jiving. There's nothing. Yeah, just like Zen. I pictured that too, with my arms outstretched like that. But at the same time, my human self is freaking out. And I'm just like, screw this. No. And
that's so funny. The human self. I keep saying this is going to be an ending note, and then it isn't.
I'm sabotaging.
I know. It's the Taurus.
It's
the Taurus. The human self really does try and prevent you from experiencing the life you're meant to experience by like trying to control it. It's like, I'm gonna force this, I'm gonna live someone else's life so that they fit into my life. Like how you were saying you were trying to kind of force your mom into accepting who you were when she wasn't ready. Like sometimes the human self needs to be quiet. And we be ourselves, and it's the learning that we are humans, but there's the ego human, and then there's the us human, and which human are we going to be today? And you get to make that decision, and that's part of the awakening journey. You get another personality, you get another self to learn how to be both, by also not being the ego all the time, but accepting when the ego does make decisions for you and it's not the intuition. I know Grahm has experienced it. I have also experienced it. I'm sure Sky has experienced it.
All the time.
Where the ego is making decisions for you and you think this is the right thing to do. It's because the ego wants to do it.
See, I've graduated to the point where I know what the truth is, but I defy it anyway in myself.
Oh yeah, that happens too.
And I'm like,
and it's normal, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fumble, because you're never going to be awoken and you're never going to be healed. You're going to be awakening and healing for the entirety of your existence, because you're constantly growing. You're constantly changing. The elves are saying, because you are beings of the tree of life, you will grow like a tree. You will experience seasons like a tree, where you will go through the nice sunny summer, and you will also go through the harsh, cold winter. But you have to go through the cold to experience the good, and the good isn't as enjoyable without the bad. That feels like that's such a good message.
Amen.
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 And I just want to say too, thanks so much for having me. It was
yes,
of fun,
of course. We need to do more. We need to do more of these, more collaborations together, and as a group. We've created a channeling trio. We will start a separate YouTube channel, the channeling trio.
Yeah, thanks for letting me butt in. I didn't want to like interrupt anything or whatnot, but I just felt like it'd be kind of cool to hop in and see what comes out. I was being inspired.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. And you gave Grahm a message too. So
thank you, partner.
Yeah, for sure.
We need the Taurus during Taurus season. Yes.
Do we? I don't know, man, because we've got a moon in Scorpio with eclipse. And I'm a Taurus sun, Scorpio moon. And I've been having this like date in the back of my mind for like a couple of weeks, and I was like, it's coming up. What's going to happen here? Because I know it's going to be like kind of a last hurrah, kind of really deep introspective period of time for me. Last year, I had some really big things land in my lap, so to speak, or just like lessons that were super, super like raw and real and scary, and also enlightening. It's interesting, like last year, even my vacation, like I had an amazing vacation. I was in the Philippines for a while. I did work and play, And
Maybe let's end the live and then continue.
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
then continue. That's
Yes.
what I will end with saying I did already, I will have a few more channeled videos coming out on the channel that I already recorded, but this is actually the last thing I am recording that will be coming out before I go to Greece. So to all the subscribers and followers, do be expecting there will be channelings from the beach and connecting and all of that, and other inspired awakenings with a bunch of other people. So Inspired Awakening, this whole series is going to have a lot more episodes when I go this summer, but this is an exciting episode 4, and we'll be doing a lot more with these two because they're my channeling friends. I'm sure we'll collaborate more. Correct
I love it.
Yes.
I'm down.
Yes.
I'm
Stay
down.
inspired, beautiful beings. May the petals of the flower of inspiration lead you back to all of us again. I do have Graham's stuff in the description, but I can add Sky's stuff in a comment as well. But if you do want to actually just see all of Sky's stuff, go to Inspired Awakening episode 2, and that is where you'll find Sky's stuff. You want to hear a little bit more about Ascension, go to Inspired Awakening episode 3, and Inspired Awakening episode 1 is about me. So if you don't know who I am, check that out. Love all of you, sending you all love and light. Goodbye for now.